G'day and welcome to the first of a few Android development videos for Swinburne students. As with all development and walkthrough videos, this will be, painfully lame, but just bear with it and you'll get through it. In this video, we'll just be covering the setting up of Eclipse and downloading things like the software development kit and the Android, virtual devices and things like that. So it's fairly basic setup things. So if your Eclipse environment's already working perfectly well, there's no need to watch this video. This video is oriented towards those people who are setting up on their own desktop or laptop, and so it doesn't cover the portable Eclipse kind of environment, just references it once or twice. As with other videos, this PowerPoint or this Pages or Keynote presentation will be available at the end for you to use. So throughout it, I'll paste in links and things like that here so that you're able to access it as a PDF later. So we'll just start off with setting up Eclipse, the basics. So Eclipse is our development environment for Android, which we've been using in the Swinburne class. And so what we begin with is just downloading or attempting to download the Eclipse environment. So it's an open source and available, resource. If you go to eclipse.org or do a simple search for it, you'll find it pretty quickly. We'll just hit up download straight away, and just all we want at the moment is Eclipse Classic, and grab the Windows 32 or 64-bit edition depending upon what you have on your computer, what edition of Windows you have. It's also available for Linux and OS X. And works fairly well, and the setup process is fairly similar. If you are wanting the portable version, which you can grab in one go, it can be found under the Mobile Apps Week 4 topic and at this address. It's also in my public, which I'll paste into that PowerPoint, but it also can be found on the public Dropbox. So if you're able to log into Blackboard, you'll be able to grab this and download it straight from there, which is pretty handy. Okay, so you've clicked download, you'll get it as a zip file. It's not an installer, I don't believe, on any system, and so you'll download it to your C drive or to your computer, and I suggest just extracting it. You'll get a file like this, 84, 64, whatever. And you can extract it into the base folder as Eclipse, and then I've got a folder within a folder, so I'm just going to drop that out onto my C drive. You might want to put it into your program files or something else. I'm on a virtual machine, so I don't really care. I'm just going to use it for these demonstrations. So I've just made a shortcut there, but I'll just leave it as a exe. As a folder in my C drive. I've also created two other folders, Android Workspace and Android SDK Windows, and these folders will contain our workspace, which is all the files we create when we're building Android applications, and the SDK-Windows is where the software development kit that Google provides us will live, and Eclipse will reference it there. Okay, so it's pretty crazy. So now we'll jump over to the Google Android website. So that's at developer.android.com, and I think you can probably just search for Android developer and get here pretty quickly. And we're starting with the first of the develop tools and the initial one. So the first thing that you'll need to do is download the SDK. So click that link and download it, and then extract it to your C drive. So extract it here, and it should look something like this when you're done with the AVD and SDK manager in that folder. You don't have to run them yet. We'll just run them through Eclipse just for the sake of ease, and because the process is quite short anyway. So if you click on installing the SDK, we'll go through to this link, and you'll see that there's different instructions. Take your time reading through them, but for the sake of this tutorial, we'll just skip through. That you can this is the Android SDK manager, which allows you to download additional Android editions, so that you can test with multiple Android releases. So you'll need to download those, and we'll run it from Eclipse later on. So this is the line that I want you to copy. This is installing the Android development plugin into Eclipse. So if you can copy this, and now we're going to open up Eclipse on our C drive. So open up the Eclipse folder. We're opening up eclipse.exe, and after a bit of delay, it should eventually open. What this is going to do is we're going to install the Android development tools as part of Eclipse, and so it allows us to develop Android applications in kind of a what you see is what you get type environment, which is pretty handy. So after Eclipse launches, it will ask you to choose your workspace folder, and I suggest that you don't click use this as the default, so that if you decide to do a reset, you can just create a new folder and go from there. Now I've got my folder on C drive just under Android workspace, so I'll select that and press OK, and OK again, and Eclipse will continue to load. You normally get an Eclipse splash screen on your page, but I think it's opened up in my other window, which is why you can't see it at the moment. Okay, so we've copied this. I'll just put this in the presentation while we're waiting. And Eclipse is open. There seems to be a package in there that I'm just going to delete, so that we're starting with a clean slate. You probably won't have to do that. However, this is a clean install of Eclipse. I haven't installed anything yet. I just must have had something in my workspace already. So if we're going into help and then we're clicking on install new software, this allows us to install the Android development tools, and we're pasting in that link, which is https google.com Android Eclipse, clicking add, and we'll just call it ADT, Android Development Tools, and it's just searching for them. So when this pops up, what we'll click on are the development tools themselves, and then we'll click to install them. So we've selected the development tools. You don't need to grab the NDK plugins, however you can if you'd like. Accept all the license agreements. Google now owns your soul. And you'll just have to wait for this to install. It shouldn't take too long. You should be looking at on most connections, less than 10 minutes. If it does die out, just quit Eclipse, restart, and go through the process from the beginning. And it should kind of take up where it left off, so you shouldn't have many problems there. Okay, so after you may have a pop-up during your update that just asks if, says this software may not be signed, do you want to install that anyway? Just click OK or yes. And then you'll need to restart Eclipse for the changes to take effect. Would you like to restart? Obviously the answer is yes. We do want to restart. And so Eclipse will just take its time restarting. When it restarts, it will pop up this window asking for your workspace again. And if you haven't changed, which we haven't, we can just quickly press OK. And then you'll get after Eclipse loads, we'll have the option of choosing where the Android SDK is located. And so remember, we installed that to C drive Android SDK. So just wherever you've installed yours, that will be the location you select. So now we'll choose Window and Preferences, and we're just going to click on Android and choose the SDK location. So mine's found it because it was in the, it's got a very similar relative path, and it just has a quick check. But you might have to click Browse, click on Android SDK Windows, so the root folder, and press OK and apply, and you should be good. So you'll notice now these buttons are here before, which are the SDK Manager and the Virtual Device Manager. We use the SDK Manager to make sure our SDK is updated and download more options, so you can see the different tools that are already been installed and the ones that are not installed. Okay. If you want to download all of these possible things, it can be quite large, in 20 gig or more. So you can pick carefully what you install and what you don't. I suggest obviously the Android support library, and if you want to run on your own device, the Google USB driver. You can grab any of these other ones as well though, and it's probably not a bad idea to just keep kind of, whenever, maybe when you go to bed at night, grabbing another, selecting some more packages and clicking install, so they update overnight. These are the base ones you need though: Android 4.1.2, which is API 16, and the Android software development kit tools, so the Android SDK tools. If you haven't got those, just click the little check marks and click install, packages, and go from there. I don't have these Intel System Image and MIPS System Image installed, but it should be alright at the moment. I'm just going to close out that. This thing is your Android Virtual Device Manager, and so you set up Android virtual devices, which are Android testing environments, and you can choose your version. You give it a name, whatever you'd like, and choose your version. And so we've downloaded Android 4.1.2, which is API level 16, and so we've got a few options there. But if you downloaded more of the versions, you'd have many more options. And once you've created that, you can click. I've already got one called tester again. Then you can create that AVD, and it will create the appropriate files. Now, because I'm working on a virtual machine, I get some strange errors here, which I'll go and fix, but you won't have to. But just for now, I'll just create it and close. Finally, to create a new Android application, we click up here in the top corner and we do Android Application Project, and this runs a wizard for us, which makes it nice and easy. So we'll just create our first project, which will be Paper, Scissors, Rock. And this is our first project. So every project starts with a package, and if you're developing for the Android marketplace, you'd use a unique package name here, so that when you released it, it was able to be installed by other people. When you're developing just as a test project, we just about always use com example and then our name. This allows you to create a nice little icon for your application, and you can customize some things here. And this allows you to create an activity and what type of navigation it has. So you can see that there's differences here, and we'll use these more later on in our projects. This is the main activity of your application, so it's like your default starting activity, and so we'll just leave that as main activity for now and click finish. If this works and you create a a Android application without errors, any errors on the page, then you're good to go. I may have some because of my virtual, the type of environment I'm setting up this in, which I'll need to fix, but you shouldn't, if you've set up just on a computer, you shouldn't have any. If you've set up on a non-virtual machine, you should be completely fine. Finally, just click run, and your Android application will want to run as it will ask you what you'd like to run it as. You select Android application, and it will launch in the virtual device. That's it for video 1, and join in next video when we go on from here to create some buttons and have them do some cool things. Hi, welcome to video 2 of the Android development series for the Swinburne students. Obviously this material is supplementary material, so its aim is to help you along with the time spent in class. So for debugging and difficult kind of issues, just make sure that you're bringing those kind of questions to class so that we can work on them there. These videos are certainly not a replacement for attendance. In this video, the second one, we'll just have a look at running the application, so still quite basic stuff, using the different layouts, using our layouts, changing the theme, so changing to any one of the default themes, and then as an extension of that you can have a look at creating your own theme and adding elements to the layout, so just adding buttons and other things like that. Alright, let's begin. So we're continuing on from that paper, scissors, rock application we had last week, and so we've just got the files, all the files that it's created. Now all of these files will be, and this folder structure will be in your workspace, so whatever folder you set up as your Android development workspace, mine is here, you'll see that this paper scissors rock folder will mimic each other, so they match each other. So where you've got an Android manifest XML file here, you've got one here. You just have to remember though that Eclipse does create things for you. It does do some things automatically, like generating files and generating parts of documents. And so if you change things here, sometimes you can introduce errors into Eclipse. So just be aware of that. It's normally better to edit them through the package explorer inside Eclipse than it is to directly edit them, and that's because Eclipse then adjusts its metadata to match, so that can save you a fair few problems. If you're going to copy files in, copy from from wherever, copy them, copy, but then go in here and click paste straight into here. So instead of maybe doing it just in Windows Explorer, and that forces Eclipse to recognize those files. Alright, so we're just going to have a look at running our application, so that's pretty cruisy. We click the run paper scissors rock, and it may pop up a thing asking you to create a Android virtual device, and it will look something like this. So mine says it's not working, but it is. And we just create a new one, enter a name, enter a target, click create AVD. If CPU does not pop up, it means you haven't downloaded possibly you haven't downloaded the right files, or your SDK updates aren't complete or aren't connected properly, and so you just have to fix those. And you fix them by running your Android SDK manager and making sure that you have the appropriate things, at least 4.1.2, and the tools installed, and then going to your settings, your preferences, and making sure that this SDK location is pointing to where your SDK has downloaded. Okay, so that's probably one of the most common issues. I've already got my Android virtual device running, so I've started up because it takes like 5 minutes to start the first time, and so mine's already running. So when I hit play, you'll see down here that it builds and then launches our application, and it should just automatically pop up on here once it's finished launching. There we go. Hello world, yay, our first application is running, woohoo! And we can see here it's called main activity, but down here it's paper scissors rock. That's just because we have not set up any of our files or our preferences or anything yet. Alright, so you don't close it, you don't quit this, instead you just click back into Eclipse, and we'll start off by just changing our style, so our app theme. Now we can have a look at what different themes look like just by clicking on this drop down list from the top, and we can select, you know, some different themes to see what our application may look like with different themes. You know, theme black no title bar, you know, things like that. So you can have a look at, these are built-in themes, and you can create your own fairly easily. You're just creating an XML file that displays or declares styles, so it's a bit like building some CSS, so it's not too difficult. To change our theme, you're not changing your theme when you're changing this particular menu. To change our theme, what we do is we go to our Android, our application manifest, so our Android manifest. And this sets up the settings, the permissions, and the styles for our application, you know, the entire application. So we're just going to double click on that, and you'll get a nice little editor. You'll see down the bottom that we have the manifest, which is, we can set our versions, etc. We have the application, where we set the application's specific settings. We have permissions that we can add and remove, and these are application-wide permissions, different instrumentation, and then the actual XML file itself. So you can copy and paste directly into this XML file if you'd like to make changes yourself. We'll just quickly go to our application tab, so application, and then we'll have a look at this theme, and we see that it's app style, and then it's app theme, which is an automatically generated theme. We'll just click browse here, and we can see that we haven't created any styles except for the automatically generated one. So we'll just click on system resources, and you see all the different possible styles pop up there, and we'll just type in theme dot, so we get the base styles. So we can select now any of the styles we'd want, maybe translucent, and you'll see that it will pop in here. Now you've got a little asterisk up here, which means this file isn't saved, so we save that file. We go back to our activity main, and if you go up here, you'll see that app theme is kind of grayed out now. Well, it's still selected, but it's kind of grayed out. That's just a built-in theme, and instead we'll click on theme translucent, and so this is what our application will now look like. And if you hit play, you'll see that this carries over into the live version. So this is what it used to look like. And when it updates, we'll just kind of do a quit and then reopen. If it updates, launching, quit. Come on, 100% launched. So eventually when it does launch, you see, oh, it's completely translucent. So we can see right through to our, you know, our background, our normal application background. So it's a demonstration of how you can change themes. I wouldn't recommend this theme as your standard development, but you can see how the theme has changed on our Android device. So I'm just going to change that back now. So I'm going to go back to Paper, Scissors, Rock Manifest, and I basically stick with our app theme, our default theme for most of these videos, but you can feel free to change them. And in fact, you feel free to change that app theme file itself so that you have your own custom application theme by the end of the video. All right, now we're just going to have a quick look at layouts. So you can actually, layouts in Android devices work very similar to layouts in normal Java applications. You've got all different types, and they're what you use to control how things are displayed on your page. So you can do a grid layout, which allows things to be positioned kind of in a grid, a linear layout, which is vertical, which will automatically create rows on your page, a linear layout, which is horizontal, a relative layout, which means things are placed on the view within reference to each other. So if you drag something else on, it kind of places it within reference to something else on the page. And frame layouts, which give you a kind of a picture box effect, a table rows, spaces, fragments, and other, which you can define yourself. The most useful I find are linear layouts for simple applications, just because you can stack them within each other. So what we can do first is we can change our relative layout, and so instead of being a relative layout where everything is in relation to each other, we can change the layout, to perhaps a linear layout, vertical. And you'll see straight away that our things now, anything we drag to our view is arranged now in lines. So if we were to drag a button onto the page, it becomes, it automatically wants to sit underneath other things. So we'll drag another text view, and you can see we've got kind of row, so we can put it in between, or we could put it underneath, but we can't put it to the right of, because of our layout, our vertical layout. So what if you did want to put something next to each other, you could drag in another layout. So we could drag in a linear layout horizontal, and this, if we added things to this layout, they'd be able to sit next to each other. Oops, I don't know what I did there. I might have got rid of it. I think I did. I might just have to undo. So I'll just try that again, dragging on the linear layout horizontal. And I'll add my hello world to it. And you can see that they're now able to stack things across the view. So editing in this view can be quite finicky, and you're able to, if you'd prefer, create your elements directly in the XML. And we can see here you've got the linear layout, and this is very similar. This would be familiar to you if you've done familiar to you if you've done some HTML. You'd get linear layouts, and then the types, and then the actual items included within. I'd just be careful making sure that don't introduce too many errors if you're editing in this way. Just be careful to kind of do things procedurally. So create something, save it, create something, save it, and just keep an eye out for little warnings or errors popping up so you can fix them immediately. I'm just going to delete these elements. Oh, you can also adjust things, sorry, from up here. So you can see there's different, the elements kind of arranged in a hierarchical view, and so you're able to, interact with them up here as well. So I can delete them without a problem. All right, that's the end of Android development video number 2. I'll see you on the next one. G'day and welcome to the third Android development video for Swinburne students. This one actually was going to be part of number 2, but instead I decided to split them up just so that it's easier. Basically in this video we're going to have a look at why we create strings in our view and what they're for, adding some buttons to the page, to the view, and then making the buttons do something when we click on them. So some fairly basic stuff. If you've done this before and you want to skip over onto the next video, you can. We're using the same project from video 1 right through to video whatever we get up to. However, so if you're wanting to follow through all the videos and you feel like it would be too difficult to skip over, this one's actually an alright one to start at. As far as, after this it gets a bit more difficult to skip, to guess what we've done. Okay? Here we go. So we're continuing on from topic number 2, and we've got those 2 hello worlds on the page. I'm just going to delete one of them. So just up here in our linear layout, I'm going to drag one up into the horizontal layout, so it will become our main text view, and then I'm just going to delete these other 2 things because I don't need them anymore. So delete. And I'm just going to rename, or give this hello world this text view an ID and also change its text. So the first thing to do is to give it an ID, and I'll just give it the ID text result. And it doesn't seem to have done the ID properly. You need this little @ symbol plus ID. Can you see it for the linear layout? You need this before your IDs so that they're referenceable application wide. So we're just going to drop that in here. So I copied it and I'm just going to paste it in here so that our text result actually has a proper ID. Oh no. Okay, it seems to have worked. If we get problems later on, then I'll just get angry about it then. The other thing that we can do is set up the text that's inside our, or displayed on our page. And you can enter string literals, so we can put in a literal string, something like this, welcome to my app. And you'll see that it shows up without a problem, but that we get a little warning there. That warning is basically because the application goes, well, if I find a resource with the same name or something else, I'll break here, because I'm not sure if this is a string or what this is actually. I may even find a function in your code called the same thing and use that instead. So it's better if we use a string reference, and that's where we create a, we use the builder to build us an XML string which contains our string. It's a bit funny like that, but you can kind of think of it as creating a variable. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable with our welcome to my app string inside of it. So if you click this little ... and then click new string, we'll just give our this is the top one is what's displayed, so we'll make it welcome to my app, and you can see we've used caps and spaces and other things, and then this is the actual string name, and so we'll call this string welcome. And so I've used the prefix str and I've used a capital letter, but you avoid spaces or anything else in this part, in this name, otherwise you'll end up with problems. Press OK. The string is created, and it's created inside our strings XML file. So if we can see now that it displays that string, but also that it no longer is giving us any kind of warning, and so we're good to go in terms of building our file and running our file. Just to show you where this string is stored though, if we look at resources and look at values, we see our strings.xml file, and this file contains our strings, so we can see string welcome is there, and if we look at the file itself, we can see it's just a plain text file, it's just an XML file. We can see our string name, string welcome, welcome to my app. Now we don't have to do anything in terms of writing directly into this file at this stage. However, later on we will want to. If we were to change this, welcome to my application, after saving it, we'd see that our activity main will update to follow. So anything that happens in this resource will be reflected in our main application. I'll just close these other files now. We're not going to use them for a while. Okay, I would just like to drop on a button onto our page, and so I've got a linear layout, and so when I drop it on, it's just going to go underneath it quite happily. I'm going to call my button paper, because it's going to be my paper button. What happens, when they click it, it will be like they're pressing paper. And I'm just going to change the text, so what's displayed on the button, to a string. So again, I'm just going to create a new string, paper, string paper. Okay. And so now we have our lovely paper button. Okay. To set what will happen when someone clicks on buttons, you can do two things. You can set create action listeners, which if you've done some Java, you may be familiar with, or we can set something to the on click of our button. And so whatever we write in here, it will look for that function in our Java file. So we're just going to create a function called clicked paper, and hit enter at the end of it out of habit, but you can see that that's entered in. Now we don't have to enter anything else in there. What will happen is when someone presses or clicks on our paper button, it will run that function in the Java file, the activity main Java file, because we're in activity main XML. It goes to the activity main Java file. So you can find that by looking in your Project Explorer and then source, src, and then looking at your project, your .com example, paper, scissors, rock, and there's our activity Java file. So if we open that up, we can see this is the Java. This is exactly the same as any other Java you'd expect to see. Now by going back here, we might want to just directly copy that file. So whatever happened on the on click. So we'll just grab that and copy. And if we then go back to our main activity, we can do a public void. We don't want it to return anything when it's done. Clicked paper. And then it accepts a view which is just the element that was clicked. So this view is actually a button that will come through. So it's a bit like if you're used to JavaScript, where you often pass through the element that caused the event. That's what's happening here. The button that caused the event is actually passed through to the method itself. If you get one of these errors, this is just that we haven't imported that object yet, so we can just fix it by importing view. And we'll just save that. Now we want to set up our application so that when we click that button, it changes our text to you clicked paper. So we're going to create a string here, string text to display equals you clicked paper. So we're just creating a variable there. Now we have to get our object from the view, so we have to get the object we want to change, and so we can just do that by firstly saying the text view, which is the object type. So it's like string, but we're just getting the text view object type, and we'll just have a look at what ours is called, and we'll do a similar name. So this is our text view, this area here. This is what we want to change, and we'll just have a look at what it's called, what its ID is. Its text result is its ID. So when we go here, we'll just give it the same name except lowercase. And then this is a typecast. This says make that view, whatever view we receive, this type. And then we use find view by ID, which is, if you're familiar with JavaScript, it's a bit like get element by ID. And then we just grab our resource, or our application ID, and then text results. And so that's our text result. That's our view object. So you can see here there's that underline, red underline, and you get this often when working with Android. Just fix it by importing. Any that you can fix by importing, you just fix by importing, and it just means that you haven't, up here in the import, you haven't imported that object yet. So it's not quite sure what it is. And it's not find view by ID, is it? It's it is find view by ID with a lowercase f. Sorry about that. So it's find view by ID with a lowercase f. And then here we just want to set the text result to display on the screen. So we're going to say text result. So our variable here, dot and then you can wait for this to pop up so you can see that you're on the right track. Set text, and it's wanting a text, and we'll give it our text variable text to display, and we're done. So you just delete those lines, and I'll just save that and go to my activity main and hit run, and it should start to pop up on our application. While it does that, I'll just quickly copy this text into the PowerPoint. So if you grab a copy of the PDF from the public Dropbox, you'll be able to just copy this code directly in if you're having any problems reading it off the PDF, reading it off the video. And we see our application started up. Just jumping back to it, if we click our paper, we get you click paper. Yay! Okay, that's the end of video number 2, of number 3. I'll see you in video number 4. Hi, welcome to Android development video number 4 for the Swinburne students to help you getting through some of the Android development stuff. We've got in this video just creating the paper, scissors and rock buttons, making them each run their own function, and we're just going to use the on click, and so we don't need to set up any action listeners or anything like that. We're going to create a random number, and then we're going to determine win or loss in a function, and so, or in a method. It's just the same as you'd have in any other Java application. And then display win or loss on our view. So display it on our screen, just in that text input that we used last time. So we'll probably go through this a bit quicker than we did the other one. So I'm just going to drop the other buttons onto the screen and set their IDs. Basically, just making sure to use a consistent naming convention. So I've obviously used BTN at the start as a standard, so I'll continue with that. Basically just setting them up to be button paper, scissors and button rock, and setting their text to the appropriate strings as well. And I've used str at the start of my string name as a standard, so I'll just continue with that as well. Just making sure to keep consistent. You can discuss the pros and cons of different naming conventions, but basically you just want to keep it, whatever you decide on, you just want to keep consistent to it, and that just makes it easy for anyone else who were to come into your code and need to do something. So just along those lines, I've called this one has a clicked paper as its on click, and so these ones will have similarly named classes, clicked scissors and clicked rock. So they've each got functions, or they've each got methods. Sorry, I'm in PHP land. They've each got methods that are called when they're clicked, and we'll just quickly create those in here. So we'll just copy this line, and we should really copy the names from the other file, but just to save time, just to keep it consistent, I'll just put these in first and then go back and copy it from in here. So just so that you don't run into errors of, it's normally like the application just quits and it seems like for no reason. That's what often occurs when the name doesn't exactly match, because it goes looking for a function but can't find it. It goes looking for a method but can't find it. So this way, we just, by copying and pasting, we just make sure that we don't have that error. Alright, when this one catches up. Okay, so we've got our different events happening here, and what we can do now is have them all. I've just deleted that other, actually I'll just leave that in there and just commented it out. What we can do is actually create another function that can do all the work for us. So each of these will call it and just pass it a value. So we'll create public void play game as our activity, as our method, and we'll just have it so that it passes through an int my move. So this would be expecting whatever the whatever move we were going to perform, and we're passing it through as an int so that 1 can equal paper, 2 can equal scissors, and 3 can equal rock. So whatever's passed through to it, that's what move we made. So it's pretty easy to then set the appropriate event. So we're just going to say play game. So each one of these will play game and then pass through the value. So it's paper. So they've clicked paper. So we want to pass through a 1. So this is basically saying this is the move that they played. So scissors, they've clicked scissors, and so we want to run this function and pass through a 2 as our move. And then finally with the clicked rock, so we want to say they've clicked rock, they're going to pass through a 3. Okay, nice and easy. And I'm just going to cut this commented out code from up here because we won't use these functions really again. There are other ways to do this, particularly using event listeners where you wouldn't have code like this, but we're just doing it the easy way, the way that we've done it before. So we've got a function per button, and then we've got our function or our method that we've built to handle the game, to basically play the game. Okay, so now we need to generate a random number. So what we've done so far is we've created paper, scissors, and rock buttons. We've made them each run their own function, and now we need to create a random number. So we're just going to create a random number, and we'll do this using the built-in math random. So we'll just go for an integer. So int random number equals, and then we just have to typecast our result as an integer so that it works, and we'll go 3 because our number's between 1 and 3. Math.random, and math is a built-in set of built-in library that we can use, and one of its functions is random. And then if we plus 1 to it, it actually gives us a number between 0 and 1. And so we add 1 to it and times it by 3 to basically get a whole number, and then typecast it as integer, and that gives us a whole number between 1 and 3. You've probably seen a similar thing in JavaScript when you do math floor or something like that to round it, but we're just using the typecast to do that work for us. Okay, so now we can do basically who won, who lost the game. And I don't know if you remember, but last time I got you to do this is a whole bunch of if statements. But the pseudocode from this is basically something like, instead of doing it that way, what we'll do is we'll calculate if it was a draw. So we might have to do up here is int result. And what we can do is we can say for result, 0 is nothing, 1 is a win, 2 is a loss, and 3 is a draw. So we just, I mean, you don't have to do things as numbers. You can do them as text, or you can do them as whatever you'd like. The benefit of doing them as numbers is it makes it quite easy to compare them. And so this is just one way we can set up our application. Okay. I just realized instead of calling it random number, we'll just call it comp move. So it's the computer's move, what they've essentially picked for this game. So first thing we need to do is calculate is it a draw. So if my move equals comp move. So if we've both done the same thing, then what we have on our hands is a draw, and so our result equals 3, draw. Okay. Then we can go else if. So what we can do is we can say, is it a draw? if it's not a draw, if our number is 1 and they are 3, so if we're paper and they are rock, we win. So what I'm basically doing here is an elimination kind of basic algorithm. So what we do is we remove all the winning results, and then at the end we can just go everything else is a loss, and so it just cuts down the amount of code we do. I don't know if I think the first time we did this I just made you guys write a whole lot of ifs and else ifs, and that was good practice, but I can't be bothered doing that today, so we'll just do this. So else if, basically if we're a 1, so my move equals 1, and comp's move, so they've basically chosen a 3, so they're rock and we're paper, then we win. And you could put this next statement included in this else if, so you could put it up in here and put it in brackets as like a separate entity, but just to eliminate the amount of complexity, I'm going to do it as a separate one. So the result is a win. Else if, basically this one is if our number equals their number plus 1, so if our move equals their move plus 1, so if our move 2 equals, so what we're basically doing is saying if we're 1 up, we will always win. So if we're scissors and they're paper, we'll win, or if we're rock and they're scissors, we'll win. So we've already eliminated if we're rock and they're paper, so we're just eliminating the other two by doing this. So if my move equals, and then just in brackets, comp move plus 1, then our result equals 1, so it's another victory. Later on what we'll do is we'll actually change these out for consistent ladder boards, so if you wanted to do this in your code immediately you could. Everything else, there's no other options I think. There might be, I may have forgotten some, but so everything else is a loss. Oops, is 2. So this is our calculation. So if we are the same, it's a draw. If I've got a paper and they're a rock, I win. Otherwise, if my move equals their move plus 1, so if my move is 1 greater than theirs, so I've got a scissors and they've got a paper, or I've got a rock and they've got a scissors, I win. Otherwise, well, everything else is I lose. So this does the calculation for us, and then all we need to do is we can do a display of our text. So now we want to show our win or loss on the screen. And so we'll go text view result. We want that available to us again. So that, remember, is getting the view by ID, and the view object is a text view. So that's why it's typecast as 1. That's why the object type is 1. And then we want to go text result equals text to display. But we don't know, we haven't at the moment got it converted to a type of text that people could understand. So what we're going to have to do here is turn our text into something that can be easily understood. So what we'll do is a switch statement. So we'll switch our result. Okay, so it's our integer, and so case 1, which is up here, a win. We can set our text to display to U1, and then a break so it doesn't keep going through to the others. Case 2, I'll just copy paste. We'll set our text to display to U lost, and get rid of the exclamation point. And then case 3 is a draw and again, get rid of the exclamation point. Now we could have a default in there as something like text to display, something went wrong, or just try again. So if something, this should never be hit, you know, we should never have a default where it's not a 1, 2, or 3, but just in case we do, we'll put this in here, and that just avoids errors for us. Okay, and then finally we display the result on the screen. So we've got our basic paper, scissors, rock application saved in here, no errors at the moment, just imported what we need. So we'll go to our activity main, hit play, and see how we go. While we do that, I'll just copy this code into the PowerPoint for you. So just this Java script code, I'll just copy all 4 of these methods. So, and well, actually, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I'll fix that up later. Okay, we'll see if our application is showing. So we've got our welcome to my application. When we click a draw, you won, you lost, you won, a draw, you lost, you won. So we can see every option gives us a random number and then displays whether we win or lose. In the next video, we'll work through creating a ladder board and actually showing the results so we can tell that it's really working. But excellent job if you're up to this, and I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to video number 5 of the Android development stuff for Swinburne students. In this video, we'll just have display what you and the computer both picked, so paper versus paper or whatever it was. Keep track of wins, losses, and draws in a variable or a set of variables. Display those wins, losses, and draws on the view, and create a reset scores button. So we're just going to do these fairly basic things. So if you feel like you can go ahead and do these without reading any code that I'm going to do, feel free to do it and meet me at the next video. But I'll just quickly go through the process of creating this. So obviously we already have the paper, scissors, rock, and the results field. So I'm just going to drag this results field down here, and I'm going to drop in another text view called which I'll name wins, another one called losses, and another one called draws, and then finally a reset button. Okay, so we've just got to give each of these a string value for now, as well as we may want to, we also need to set their IDs. So we'll just set the first one as text wins, the second one as text losses, and the third one as text draws, and the button as button reset. And obviously we just need to set the values for each of these as well. For the text views, you really could leave them empty, but I'm going to put a string value in them just because you might as well. I just like getting rid of those warnings. But really, you could just make them empty and leave it at that, because we're going to change that text anyway. So easy. Or the other thing you could do is just set them to an empty string. In fact, we might just do that. We might just set them all to hello world, the string hello world. You can reuse a string reference, so we'll just set them all to use that hello world string for now. And after they've run once, they'll be set to nothing. In fact, we might even change it so that on load it sets the values of all of these as one of the first things it does. So that's basically it. So we've got our paper, scissors, rock button. We've got our text result. So this is still our result field that will say you win or you lose, although we'll change it so it says paper versus paper, you win, or a draw or whatever, and then wins, losses, and draws. And I've accidentally gone into the XML file, which is causing problems. I'm just going to save that, and now we're going to our Java file, and that's where the bulk of the work will be. Okay. Oh, we'll just set the on click for this reset button. So we might as well do that now. So we'll just set its on click to reset scores. Okay, so its on click event is reset scores, and obviously I'll copy that now so I can straight away use it in the JavaScript. Okay, in the Java file. Off we go. And so I'm just going to create that reset scores, an empty function, empty method here, just so that we don't get any weird errors. So I've put it up near the other clicked events. Just keeping them all together is a pretty good idea, so that you can easily see, oh, these are all the ones that buttons run, and then these are my own ones. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to do is display what you and the computer both picked. And so we're going to change this slightly, so that instead of just setting our move, it also displays what was versus what. So what our move resulted in and what their move resulted in. So we might just create our own little function to return a string for this. So we might create a public string, what move, and it can expect an int move. So it expects an integer, and then it will return, paper, scissors, or rock. So obviously this is just a nice switch statement. And each of the cases being, paper, scissors, or rock. So case 1 is, actually we'll just create a string up here. So we're just creating an empty string, so we can set it for each of these. You could return in them, but it's probably more problematic than need be at this stage. We'll just do it this way because it's an easier thing to follow at the moment at our current level. So we're just setting the text, this text variable, to whatever number 1 would be. So number 1 is paper, and so we'll just set this to paper and break so that it doesn't continue to run the rest of the code. Case 2, we'll set text, and I'll just copy paste. Text 2 is obviously scissors, and text 3 is rock. So, oops. Alright, so this means we can run this function, and after we put in our return statement, so our return, which means send back our text move, it means we can easily say grab whatever the move was and give me a text value of it. So we can easily we can easily get this value now. Okay, so now when we want to display our text, what we can do here is display their move, a text their move versus a text our move, just to make it all look nice. So what we'll do here is go string text our move equals, and then we'll run this other function, this other method that we've made. So we'll just copy and paste it. And so this will hold in it, after this runs, it will hold in it the text value, either paper, scissors, or rock for our move, for my move. Okay, so we can pass through that int of what move we clicked on, and then we'll just copy and paste this, and we'll go text comp move, and we'll pass through the comps move, so whatever random number we generated. So now these will hold either paper, scissors or rock, and paper, scissors or rock. So in our display we've got you won, you lost, or a draw, or just try again, which should never happen. And we can put in here you know, text our move, and then the verse, text comp move, and then we just have to add some spacing, you know, so that we add another plus over this side so it concatenates. And so it will say something like scissors versus scissors, a draw, or scissors versus paper, a win. So we could also put in a little bit of extra text here, something like you versus, and then comp. And so now it will say something like you, scissors versus comp, paper, you won. Okay, so it's getting more of a full output. You'll notice we're all still doing this on the same page. We'll get to changing views in a later video, but for now we're just happy to do it all in the same view. Okay, so we've done that first bit of display what you and the computer picked. At this stage you could run your application just to check that it's all working well. The next part is to keep track of wins and losses. So what we're going to do is create a class-wide variables. So just some ints for wins, losses, draws. Okay, so this is initializing those objects, and then what we can do is when the activity is loaded, so this onCreate is run when the activity is loaded, we'll go wins equals 0, losses equals 0, and draws equals 0, so that they're all initialized. Well, they're all initialized at 0. That's me running Windows 8 release client, so that wild pop-up was me bumping the Windows key. So wins, losses and draws is now all set to 0 when our application loads. Now all we have to do is keep track of it. So basically just whenever we win or we lose or we draw, we increment the number. So what we can do down here is, this first one is a draw. So I just put in a comment and say we'll make draws plus plus. So increment draws. This one is a win. So if my move is 1, if we were, what was it, paper, and they were rock, it's a win. Or so we'll do wins plus plus. So we'll increment it. Down here, if my move equals comp move plus 1, so if we were 1 better than the comp, it's wins plus plus. And then everything else is a loss. So this was a win. I'm just putting in the comment. And then everything else was a loss, so we'll do losses plus plus. So we'll increment that number. And now all we need to do is display it. So the display is fairly similar to our other display, except we have those 3 different areas that we want to display it in. So I'll do it all down the bottom underneath this, so that it's easy to see where it is when you're editing it, because you may want to move this to another view later. So what we'll do, of course, first is get our text views, and so I'm just going to copy this line, and we've got text wins, and then if you just delete this and then ask for the autocomplete, you can allow it to pop up. So we've got text wins with uppercase. So our object variable's lowercase, whereas our view object is uppercase, and that just allows us to easily see which is which. So we've got text wins, text losses, and again we'll just allow it to autocomplete. So if you just delete back to the full stop and then press the full stop, you should get a pop-up like this. And as you do text, you'll see your text losses, results and wins. So these are obviously your view objects with IDs. So we're going to choose text losses, and then our final one, text draws. We'll just grab that and we'll rename this one draws. Okay, so now we can easily set each of these, the text for each of these. So we'll do text wins dot set, and just waiting for that autocomplete so we can see we're on the right track. Set text, and we'll put in wins plus wins. So that's our variable plus our text. Now this isn't a string, it's an integer, so sometimes sometimes it may ask for some kind of conversion to happen there. I think that it will accept this because we're concatenating it, and so it kind of does an implicit conversion for us. But if it doesn't, if we get an error in a minute, we'll just go back and fix it. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste these and make the changes that are necessary. So we're changing it from text wins, text losses, text draws, and then wins, losses, and draws, and then our variables wins, losses, and draws. Okay, so these are our three variables that we've used, that we've incremented here, and that we've initialized up the top and set to 0 when our application loads. So they'll, as we play more games, they'll increment and update on the screen. Okay, so we've kept track of the wins, losses, and draws in variables. We've displayed them on the view, and now we just need to fill in that code for our reset scores button. So our reset scores button, we've already created up here, the event that fires when it runs, and basically we're just going to copy this wins, losses, draws to 0 and paste it into that reset scores function. So when they click that button, it's resetting our wins to 0, our losses to 0, and our draws to 0. If you save and you've got no errors, we should be able to play and run that. And while that runs, I'll just copy this code into that JavaScript file. So I'm just going to copy this time the entire class, the entire main activity class. And so you could theoretically, paste that over your whole file. And we'll have a look. So paper versus comp rock, I won. Scissors versus comp paper, I won. And so I can see my wins are incrementing, and if I just spam this for a bit, I don't lose very often. I seem to be quite good at this game. You can see that we're getting incremental. Then if I reset the scores, nothing happens. I must have done something wrong. I'll just quickly check. There's no refresh until I click another one. So then it refreshes. You could fix that quickly by copying this code up there. I'll let you do that in your own time. Or you could call a play game and pass it a non-value like a 4, and then it would give you the just try again, which would be interesting. But I'll let you do that refresh in your own time. Then in the next video I'll have one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in video 6. Alright, Android development video number 6. This one's looking at some basic things again, just a continuation on our project of adding images to our buttons, or adding drawables in general to the application, to Eclipse. Building a refresh function so that our page, our view, when it loads, straight away refreshes the scores, and we can call that whenever we want to refresh the output on the screen. And adding a text input name instead of using your, and that's just because I've realized that we haven't used an input, we haven't used a get text yet, and it's a useful skill for you to see demonstrated, and once you've seen it once you can apply it many times. So that's probably something useful. And because we're building a refresh function, we can have it that whenever it runs, it grabs the text and puts it in, and later on when we load or send to and from a website, we'll use that name as a as an identifier for like a high scoreboard or something like that. So something fairly easy. Okay, so we'll go through quickly adding images to our buttons. So basically Android use drawables, which can be JPEGs, PNGs or GIFs, and you see here in your resources folder, your res folder, that you've got drawable high definition, drawable low definition, medium definition, and extra high definition. So you've got your different drawable types. For a bit more information about that, check out the developer.android.com website and read a bit about the drawable things, or have a chat in class, ask some questions. What we're going to do here is create a new folder just to put in kind of generic drawable image files. So what we'll do is we'll just create the folder called drawable. Now it's all lowercase, and it is you know, sensitive. It does have to be drawable. You can create resource folders with your own resources in them, but Eclipse doesn't do that great a job of managing them when you do that. So anyway, what we've done is we've created this drawable folder, and what we're going to do is we're going to get Eclipse to actually create the files themselves. So what you can see is if you double click on one, you see that, oh, this is weird. But the reason that you can use this IC launcher or the IC action is because Eclipse has actually already generated the XML that links and says this is a resource for the project. And to get it to do that, you can create it yourself without any problem, and you can create it and put it in your values folder. But it's easier just to get Eclipse to do it. So the way we do that is if you minimize and grab these three images. These are available in the Dropbox folder. Actually, we'll just grab them one at a time. Is you copy, and then you go to Eclipse and click on the drawable folder and you paste. And what this does is you can see it straight away builds. It puts that image in, but it also makes it available as a resource. So when we go to our properties for something, and we want to set its drawable, preference, its drawable whatever, drawable padding, drawable right, drawable top, whatever. I'm just going to set it as drawable bottom. We can see that in here is our image, okay, and it pops up straight away. Now if you have problems, just try using a different image, and it's also very important that these images don't have capital letters, special characters, spaces, or anything like that in the file name. So the simpler the file name, the better. I think you can use dash and underscores, but you just try and avoid as much ambiguity as you can. So we'll just go for scissors, and you can see straight away it applies that image. Okay, so I'm just going to grab those two other images and do exactly the same thing with them. So minimize out, I'll grab the paper one, copy, and back to Eclipse, and in my drawable folder, paste, and then I'll grab the rock one and copy, and back to Eclipse and paste. Now you can do, of course you can try more than once, more than one at a time, and if it fails, just go back and kind of give it another shot. But you know, it was fine for me in this instance to just do them one at a time. So paper, and I'm going to push everything off the screen, so I'm going to have to start to muck around with layouts soon. So we'll just have to have a bit of a quick play with that in a minute. Now you can resize your pictures as well, but for now it's probably easier just to change the layouts. So what I'll do is just change it. So you can see here I've got a linear layout. I'm just going to drop another layout in there, and I'll drop my linear layout horizontal into this top one, and then I can drop my paper. Oh, I've done something wrong there. I'll just edit and undo move widgets, and I might just arrange them from up in here. So just put, oops, just drop them in here. Paper and scissors. And then I'll just do the same thing again down here. So I have rock and then results. So I'll drop in a linear layout horizontal into here. And again, I just rearrange it up here just to avoid some weird errors. Okay, so this actually would get confusing, but I'm going to put in another vertical layout into this right hand side so that I can stack all my text areas. So you see how we kind of get, you build up kind of a hierarchy of layouts, and how it can make sense to have them like this. So now we've got our paper, scissors, rock buttons, and we've got kind of our results, wins, losses, draws, and then reset scores. And right down the bottom here, I might just put in our enter name. So I'll just drop in a text field, and I'm just going to choose the plain text. So you've also got the person name one, which has some predefined. Actually, we can use it. We just might get some. We just have to do some customizing, but we'll just drop in the person name one there. So right down the bottom, and just have to give it an ID. So we'll call it text in. Actually, this isn't a text area. This is an edit text. So I'll call it eTXT, edit text, and name. And then it's got input type text person name, and you can set kind of like the formatting that you want on that, but I'm going to leave that blank. Instead, what I'm going to do is change the hint, and so the hint shows up. It's kind of like the placeholder text that you see in web forms, and so the hint you can set again with a string. So I'm going to set a string, and the string will be enter your name, and the string can just be string name. So this, okay, and you see it kind of shows up grey there. The good thing about it is that using a hint as opposed to using a value. So when you click on this, you could set the hint or the value. Oops. You could set the hint or the text. Sorry, if you set the text, it becomes something kind of accessible. If you set the hint, you can still, the text will automatically override it, which is good. You know, it's a really good thing. Okay, welcome to video number 7, the Android development for Swinburne students. This video is a bit more difficult than the ones we've done before, or at least it seems that way. So I may be mucking around, editing things and debugging as you watch. Suppose I'm hoping that will be useful to you anyway if I need to do it. So just perhaps watch this video through once before copying exactly what I'm doing, because I may have to make changes. Just depends how good my guesses are. So this is basically saving our scores to a file and then loading our scores from a file. And we're just going to use a plain text file. So the only other change that I've made is I've moved reset scores button up here. Now obviously this is kind of the minimum, these videos are kind of the minimum we'd expect you to do, or that we'd want you to do. Obviously play with this code a bit more, kind of like have more of a go experimenting and working with it. Anyway, what we're going to start off by doing is declaring a string which will be our file name, and this string will just contain the name of the file we wish to open, and we're only going to open it in a way that's accessible to this application, this Android application anyway. So the name doesn't matter too much. I'll just call mine scores file.text. And what we're going to do is just save some text on each line. Obviously you could go a bit more advanced and do something like create a delimited file, so create a file that had multiple values on each line, but there was some kind of delimiter like a semicolon or something like that, and you'd be able to then import and export directly to and from Excel. So say if you were to email that file, it would be useful somewhere else, or if you were to make it accessible to another application on your Android device. Anyway, we're going to create two different methods, basically one to load our scores file called load scores file, and this can be run basically when the application loads. Okay, so that's going to run when the application loads, and all we're going to do is change our class scoped variables. So we're just going to change these. If you were to do this in an external file, which would be a fairly normal way to do it, you'd actually return the contents of the file as an array or something like that. But we're just going to try and do it as easy as possible. So then the other one is save scores file, and they're our two methods. So save scores could be run every time the score changes. Load scores will only be run when our application loads. And what this will give us is persistent data. It means that the data will stay with us while we between multiple opening and closings of the application. So we just also will need a try and a catch block, because we're going to open a file. Basically, if you don't, you can throw the exception, which I think if you look at the brilliant work Arne's done, he just throws his exception, but we're just going to catch all exceptions, and so we're just using the generic exception object, and we'll just put in a to do here, handle exception, except we won't ever do it in this tutorial anyway. Okay, so we're just going to try and open the file. So we're going to try and load the file, and so the first thing that we need to do is create an input stream, which is, sorry, one word. Input stream is in is input stream equals open file input. So this is going to load our file in, and we'll give it our file name. Okay. So the next thing is we create a buffered reader, and this basically allows us to, instead of reading like a character at a time, it allows us to read basically a line at a time. So it equals new buffered reader, and it actually wants a input stream reader object, so as its constructor. So we'll give it an input stream reader, a new one, and that wants our input stream. So we give that our input stream. So we've passed our input stream, basically our file, to the reader, which reads kind of like a character at a time, and then we pass the character at a time reader, and this is layman's terms, very basic, to our buffered reader, which reads a line at a time. So it kind of buffers up a whole line and then reads that out to us. So it's a useful way of reading input, not just from files, but also from websites. Well, many types of input, so lines of text, whatever. Then we're just going to create our simple while loop to read the file. So this is very similar. We just need a string line equals. So this is just what's going to be read in at each time. So we're basically saying while our line equals our buffered reader read line. So while it's getting something into it, basically, and this result is not equal to null. So this inside the brackets is evaluated first. So this bit's evaluated first, and line ends up equaling whatever was in our buffered reader read line. Now if the buffered reader read line can't get a line, it returns null. So we can say, well, our line is not equal to null. Well, there's still content to read. Keep going through it. And then in here, we'll put in the code to read in our scores. And this is a little bit tricky. Normally, what you do is you just read in, you just add to a class-wide variable or a method-wide variable the line and just kind of build up or build an array or something like that. We actually know that we'll have wins, losses, and draws on each line. So what we're going to do is create a little integer, and we're actually presupposing that there'll be at least 3 lines. So we'll do an integer count equals 0, and then a switch on that count, and case 1. So if our case 0. So if our switch equals 0, basically, if count equals 0, then what we want to do is wins. So on line 0 will be our wins value, because integer dot parse int, and you can just use autocomplete there, and we're going to pass our line. Okay. Then we break so it doesn't go through to the next one, and we'll just copy and paste. And we've got 3 of them. So we've basically got wins, losses, draws, and I'll leave you to add perhaps on the 3rd line or the 4th line save name or something like that. So you could easily do that. So this bit we keep because we're just passing the line that was most recently received, and if it's 0 or 1 or 2, so it will put the appropriate value in. But at the moment we aren't incrementing count yet, so we just need to do that at the bottom. So after it goes through, increment count, and our default action, we don't have one, so that by default if count doesn't equal 0, 1 or 2, it will just not run the switch, and we'll just any lines after the 3rd line, 1, 2, 3, will just come back. Well, we'll just do nothing. The loop will still run, but they'll just do nothing. Okay, so that reads in our file. That's our reading in file. Then the last thing we need to do is just make sure we close our input stream. So this basically just cleans up our resources and makes sure that we're not ending up building up a whole lot of kind of junk input streams around the place. Okay, so this is loading our scores file. So we want to do this on application load. So I'm just copying this function, and what I'm doing is going up here where we set wins, losses, and draws to 0 in our onCreate, and instead loading our scores file. Okay. So now it will presuppose that it can load a scores file. Now, if those values aren't set, so if it can't read the file or there's no data in the file, our wins, losses, and scores won't be initialized. So I wrote that over the top of, but you actually might be better off putting it just underneath. And it looks a little redundant. I've set them all to 0 and now I'm loading them. but it's just in case it doesn't find anything, so that it starts on the same platform. It starts with 0. Okay, then the next thing we can do is work on our save scores file. And so this is very similar. We use a try catch block again. You can catch the particular exception that will be thrown if you have an error. So you could catch, I think it's IO stream error, or it's file not found error, or something like that. You can put your mouse over open file input and see what types of throws file not found exception. So we could catch that in particular. We could in here make it a file not found exception. But I just am catching all I'm just catching all exceptions just because I'm lazy, and that way I don't have to write multiple catch blocks. Okay, so here we've got our try and our catch. But why have I got an error here? Here we've got our try and I've got an extra one. Our try and catch blocks, and in our try we're going to put in our save scores to file code. So basically we do very similar to the read scores from file. Is we start with a file output stream, and file out fo, or file output stream, I think is more common, FOS, equals open file output, and it's our file name, and then you give it a context in which you wish to open the file. So we want to provide it with a private mode. So we're saying this file is only we're going to write to this file. We want to write over the top, but also it's only going to be available to this application. So context and then mode private. So there's different modes you can provide, and if you have a look at Arne's work, you'll see Arne's notes, topic 7. You'll see that he's listed the different contexts or the different modes you can provide to the file output, the open file output, and what they mean. And basically, you've got, you can make your file public, you can append to it, you can make it private, whatever you'd like. So this also allows us to create the file if it doesn't exist. So it will automatically create the file. So now we create a buffered writer, and this is very similar to the buffered reader, in that it handles buffering of the files, and then it passes it to the output stream writer, which actually writes one character at a time, and that writes to our file output stream. So we pass through the appropriate did I spell it wrong? Oh, I've missed the new. I've got to create a new one. It's not a static object. So okay, so now we just use buffered writer.write, lowercase write, and you write in here strings. So basically it accepts characters or strings. Okay, if you give it a integer or something like that, it just expects one character. So we want to give it a string, and the way we want to do that is we want to do string.value of, and then pass it, oh, I don't want all of these, and then pass it our wins. And so what this is kind of, if you've used the toString value on, say, an object where it returns just a string, string.value of allows us to use the string object to get the value of an integer object and convert it into a string. So this saves it properly in the file. Some languages do this for you automatically, like if you're using PHP, you wouldn't have to do this, and that has its own downfalls and benefits. Okay, so but this is how we get the value out of an integer. But it's also, you can also get it out of, you can see there all the value ofs. We've got doubles, integers, floats, longs, objects, characters, booleans. So it gives us lots of options. Okay, we're just going to copy that line and we'll end up with wins, losses, draws. Alright, draws. And then we need to close our buffered reader, which also performs the job of writing to the file. So it's also, it actually is only buffered up to this point, and when we say close, it actually goes ahead and writes it. So sweet, we're able to save our scores to the file. So we really just want to do that when we refresh the screen. So what we can do is we'll go up to our refresh view, and we'll say after we set all these things, so after we set it to look like that, we'll also save our scores to a file so that they're available to us later. All right, hit run and we'll see how we go. Oh, I may have already done this actually, so mine might already have some scores in there. We actually have to set up this reset scores. So after we hit reset scores, it also saves scores to file. That's what I missed. So after we hit reset scores, we also then want to save those new 0 numbers to file so that they have some way of resetting them. At the moment, probably just have to increment, and my reset might not work. Yeah. So that's it does, yeah. Okay, so we're able to save data, and then when we leave the application and come back, and you can rerun it, it doesn't matter, it will access the same text file because it's got the same application ID. We're able to, we see that data is persistent. So that text file is accessible again and again and again, and we can constantly save and update it, which is pretty handy. Okay, thanks for watching video 7, and I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to Android development video number 8. This will probably be the second last video using this application. So what we're going to do in this video is modify permissions for our application. So we're going to give it permission to access the internet. Then we're going to create an asynchronous method that will open a URL and display the URL results on our view. So just in another text area. What basically we're going to do is get the high scores from a website, and whatever you output from the website we can read in, and there's different ways including XML and JSON or anything else to read in that data and pass that data and make it something useful. In this lesson all we're going to do is grab the text itself. Okay, so I'm just going to drop in a little text view underneath our reset scores, and I'm going to call it high scores. So I'm just going to give it an ID and give it a string. So text high scores, and its text can be a new string. Okay, and I've just broken my naming convention, so normally I'd probably trash that and reuse it, but oh well, can't be too fussy these days. Okay, so we're just going to make it so when the application loads, it grabs that high score. So we're going to build a new event basically to run this. Okay, so what we'll start off by doing is right down the bottom again, just inside of our application, we're going to create public void load high scores. Now this will obviously grab the high score and then display it on our page. One of the things though about this, so we'll just make this run when the application loads. Okay, so just right up the top. I know I'm getting you to jump up, down, up, all the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. Okay, so we'll just make that load early on, before, it doesn't really matter when, but we'll just do it here. So just after we create our view, we'll load our high scores. Now one of the things about Android is that in order to connect to an internet website now, you can't do it in the main thread, so that what the main application is running on, because it could take a while to get a response, and in that time your whole application will hang. So to avoid that, what Android has decided to do is to say everything that basically needs to read the internet needs to be a synchronous task. So it needs to not run on the main thread, but run on a different thread. So what we're going to do is create a whole new class inside this one, and so we're using private. It's just going to be a private class. So private class, and we'll just call it read internets. That's not a special name, you can call it whatever you want. Extends, and this is the key bit, is we're going to implement the asynchronous task, or we're going to extend the asynchronous task object that Android has built in. So void. These are just some parameters we could have set, but we don't need them. Okay, so you'll see that we get an error there, and we'll just fix that by importing. So we've just imported that object, and then we see it must implement these inherited abstract methods. Okay, so what we want to do here is put in override, and so this is where we're going to actually implement those methods. So protected, so it's only accessible here. Void, and then it's do in background, and this name does matter because it is we're overriding the asynchronous task that we've extended. Okay, and then it wants void ... params. So we don't need to give it any parameters. I think this is actually a capital V, which is so it's actually an object void. Anyway, just see how we go. Okay, so in this one, it's very similar to reading from a file, except we're reading from a website, and we're doing it obviously as a synchronous task. So we're going to try and catch our exceptions. And we won't do anything with it. So if you do start to get errors, then we can have a play with that to find out what the problem could be. What error are we getting here? It must return a type of void. Okay, so we just down the bottom, just do return, null, just to get rid of that error. So a bit like the other video, I'm just playing around with this myself, just trying to remember exactly how to do it. So maybe watch through this part, and then you'll see me go, I put the wrong thing in there, and then I'll go back. Alright, but what we'll start off by doing is setting up a URL object. So that's basically URL, and you'll have to import to fix it, and we'll call it text URL, and equals new URL. And the URL we're going to use, here is actually from like a website under my domain name, but you could use whatever URL you want. This one works though, it works inside and outside of Swinburne. So I know you might normally I'd put it on CRT3, but I know you might be doing this at home. So I've just put it up on juderust.com, which has nothing on it. So it's not very interesting. Okay, so we're creating a URL object here, and that basically you can set different things like encoding type. In fact, if you do new URL and have a look there, you can see the different things that you're able to set. So if you're connecting to a particular server, you might hide it on a different, port, or you might set some particular settings. This URL object allows you to do that, to specify everything about your connection. Okay, and then the rest of it's pretty easy. We've done this before. Our buffered reader, our BR equals new buffered reader, and in that we give it a new input stream reader. So it's just going to read from our website the same way that we're familiar with reading from files, and then we give it our text URL object, an open stream. So it's a bit like when we opened our file and we gave it our file object into our input stream reader, into our buffered reader, and now we can read the contents of the file. What we will need is a global variable or something to store that result in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll just make it a class wide for our read internets class, and so we'll just create a string called high score. We'll actually set it to empty to begin with. So then we do very similar to what we do in when reading a file. We'll do a line, so string line, and then we can go while our line equals br.readLine. So you remember this, it seemed familiar to you perhaps, is not equal to null. So while there's still content coming from the website, while there's more lines to be read, and this, remember, reads the source of the website. So if you did view source in Firefox, that's what this will be reading in. And we'll do high score plus equals our line. So that's going to append whatever it's just read, so the next line, onto our high score text thing. Now, this URL actually only returns one line, so we're sweet here. But just for testing purposes, this makes it, if you've already got this code, it makes your life a bit easier. So we'll just set that. And then we'll go br, our buffered reader.close. Excellent. And so this is all we need to do. This sets up we've set up our global variable. We've put in what we've read from the website, and now what we actually have to do is say display it. Because we haven't done anything to display it yet, and we actually do that in another function, another overridden function. And so we've got this one, protected void doing background, and there's another one we need to override, which runs once the task is complete. So it's protected void, I think that is a proper void, we'll just see if I get errors, on post execute. So this is kind of after it's run, so on post execute, and it's void result. So we're not passing through, we're passing through a null object to it, but as our result. So basically here what we want to do is go show our results on the page. So we'll grab our text view. Oops, not that. Text view, text high scores, wasn't it? High scores. I just do it in lowercase, and text view, and we'll find view by ID. And just use autocomplete to help you here. So text, I don't have it there. What ID did I give it? I'll just have a quick check. I haven't saved, perhaps. I'll just save that. I'll just check the ID. Text high scores, okay. So we'll just, again, now that I've saved that file, it might show up. Text high scores, beautiful. And then we'll go text high scores, oops, lowercase, high scores, dot set text, and we're going to pass it our high score string. So this one, the one that's been set with whatever was in the file, high score, oops. Okay, actually we'll put a little bit of text before it perhaps, high score, so that you can see that it's working. And the final thing you need to do in this particular on post execute is we actually need to run the super, so it's parent classes on post execute function. So on post execute, and then we just pass it that result, which was null, null anyway, but that makes everything work happily. Okay, so we've got some fairly basic, fairly simple code. Most of it's familiar. The only new thing is this read internet extends a synchronous task, and now we need to actually run this. So we've already set up our load high scores function to run when the page loads, and so now we basically just need to do a new read internets dot execute to make it run, and you don't have to give it any value. Alright, let's give it a shot, see if that works. Oh, actually, let's not see if that works yet. So what we've done here is we've said access the internet, but we actually have to give permission to our application to access the internet. And so we do that in our Android manifest. So there's a line of code. I'll actually show you, I'll give you the code that needs to be put in. I'll just paste it into our Java file for now, just so you can see it, and so that it's available later. This needs to be in the Android manifest. Okay, but we can actually set this through the Android permission object as well. So we can do this through the kind of the graphical user interface if we want to. So when we go to the Android manifest.xml file, so Android manifest XML, and we click on application, and then we look at permission, and we can browse here, and we're basically putting in that line, this bit, Android permission internet, which allows our application to access the internet. So Android permission, and it should be, yeah, you should be able to kind of select it once you're done, and just save that. Now if you want to view the file to see where it's actually put it, it just puts it inside the application manifest, so you can see it there, Android permission internet, so you don't have to do what I just did and put it on a new line. I'm just a bit just like it to be laid out nicely, so we can see that that permission's put there. So now our activity is going to be able to access the internet, and let's run that and hope we don't get too many errors, but instead we get our high score. Okay, it's just booting up. And did I accidentally click on? Yes, I did. Oops. Launching. Okay. Here we go. Okay, it looks kind of like it hasn't worked for some reason. And so we'll just have a quick look. I might just quickly have a look. Or it may not fit on that line, which is also possible. So it's possible that the text does not fit there. What I might do is just go back to here, and I can't remember what was the actual, oh, that's the same text. Just make sure that we're running this. I'll just double check that we've modified the permissions. That's probably the most likely reason it's not working. So it's just making sure that this string user's permission is manifest wide, and I probably didn't do that. I probably just set it. So I set permissions for our application, but you also have to set it for the entire package, users permission, Android permission, internet users permission. So we'll just save that and we'll give this one more go. So if we just set it so that on post execute high scores plus our high scores, and we'll see how we go. I've got an error somewhere. Oops, that's not the right one. Not there. Oops. Here. Cool. And let's give it a run. Okay, here we go. High scores, Jude Russ, 1,000 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. So as you can see, it's just some text that it's grabbing from the website. So this Jude Russ 1000W0L0D is exactly what the website's outputting. So normally what you do is you'd pass back some kind of serialized data, so that you could then put it into an array or make it useful in some way. Alright, thanks for watching video 8, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Android development number 9 for Swinburne students. This is the final video where we'll just quickly go through creating intents and opening up new views. So basically what we're going to do is create a new intent that will specify another class, open that view and send through some data with the intent. So this is all based on the developer Android tutorial, which is available online. So what we're going to do is we're going to just use our, just as a proof of concept, we're going to use our name. So when they click save name, it opens up a new file, it opens up our new view and passes through the username. Okay, so we're just going to use that function, that method we've already built, save username. So if we just go to our Java file and go to save user, oh that was lucky, save username, we're just going to use this is fine, and then we're just going to underneath actually make it so it opens up the new view and displays our username, saying your username is username. Okay, so what we're basically doing is an intent is something that says I want to do something. So normally another activity, but it could be it could be another application or something as well. So it's intent object, and you might need to import in order to fix this if it shows an error in a minute, and we'll just call it my intent. Equals new intent, and what it wants is an activity. So we're passing through this because our class that we're working on now extends an activity, and so by saying this we're giving it itself, we're giving it an activity to work with. So this is the calling activity, and this is the activity or the class that it's going to run. So we'll call it display username dot class and give it a semicolon, and then we need to give it some data. We're going to give it some information to carry through. So we're my intent dot put extra, and we give it a name, and the name can be extra message, which we'll make, you could do as just a string value, but we will make as a a public static constant, and then the value that we want to pass through is just our username. So we're just going to pass through our username. You'll have this error and this error, that's okay for the moment. And then finally we want to actually start the intent. So that's start activity, and then we give it our intent. Intent. Okay, so the only thing left to do in this document is we've got to change it so that extra message is a public static final string. So it's something accessible outside the application, but it never changes. It's just, it will always refer to this extra value. So it always will allow us, any other application, any other view, to get this value as an extra by only knowing this class's extra message variable. So we'll just declare that up the top here. And so as I said, it's a public public final, because static, so it's not going to change between multiple versions, multiple instances of this activity. String, and then its extra message equals, and we normally use our package name, normally use our package name dot extra message. So I'll just copy this, get it exactly right. And so that means you could use this string quite easily instead of using a variable. So you could use this string in here as this is what the put extra is called, this is what the message is called, but it's just a bit easier to use extra message. Okay, so now we've just got this one error, which is display username, and that's because we haven't created a class called display username. We haven't created that yet. So what we're going to do is we are going to create it. So we'll go File, New, and just click on that so it brings up the wizard, and we'll just create an Android activity. So not a new application, but just an activity, and we're going to create it inside this paper, scissors, rock one. It will just be a blank activity, that's fine. Now this is where we actually set the name, and so we'll call it what we wanted before, display username. So it's going to match exactly it's going to match this exactly what we put in here. Okay, and then the hierarchical parent, if you can set this, you might as well, and you normally set it to our main activity, so our paper scissors rock main activity, and that way it knows to jump back there. And the title of the new activity you could set here as well. I might just put a space in there for niceness. Okay, finish. And it performs the changes, it changes the XML, it does the work for us, which is great, and we end up with just a paper scissors rock empty hello world page, which is excellent. All we're going to do is change the ID of our hello world variable, so you might actually have to grab the ID of something else. We'll just have a look at our other activity main and just grab a similar ID. We just need that @ID bit, and it's sometimes better to copy it than type it in yourself. Just freeze, just so you get it exactly right. So we'll click on this, we'll set its ID to text display username, and I'll just copy that as well. Oops. And now we're just going to change this activity so that when it loads, it automatically displays our username. So if we go to our display username.java, we can see here that we've got a onCreate, which is when our page is loaded. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go intent, my intent equals get intent. And so what this will do is it will actually say whatever's run this intent. Is it intent? It is intent. I spelled it wrong. Intent. Oh, we might have to typecast over this side. So, oh no, we shouldn't have to. It should return it. Unless I've spelled it wrong. I'll just copy from over here, because seem to be struggling. I'll just do new intent for a moment and just see if that gives me the option to import. Yeah, okay. So I just needed to import. It didn't know what it was yet. I should have just done a quick import, but that's all right. Okay, and now we'll go string message. So we're going to get the value out of our intent. So we'll go my intent dot get string extra. So it's the type of extra we've put in there, and then we can go main activity dot extra message. So see, instead of having to know .com, .example, .paper scissors rock, .extra message, instead of having to know what string that is, we can just refer to the public final static string that's available to us. Okay, and then we'll just display this on the page. So we'll just do the normal thing of getting a view by ID. So text view. What do we call it? Text. I'll just copy and paste so I get it exactly right. So we're just going to display it on the screen, which you've done many times before. Text display username. And this one we do lowercase. Equals text view, we're typecasting, find view by ID, and we use autocomplete to help us here. Oops. And text display username. Excellent. And then we'll set our text display username to set text. And it can be your name is and our message. So what we'll end up with is the when this view's loaded, it will pass through, or when we click save name, it will pass through this message value as part of the intent, and display this page. We'll just save them all, give it a run, and see how we go. Oh, you'll notice now that your error, the display username error, is gone because it matches this class. Okay, so we've got this class display username that matches. Oh, if you get this error, you can just delete it. Get action bar, just trash it. And I'm not sure what this error is. You might have to do a clean and build. Anyway, let's give this a run and see how we go. So as I said, this is the last of the paper scissors rock series, and from this point on, there'll be different. I'll try and create some different tutorials, but they'll just be single-purpose tutorials. As you've probably noticed, our code's getting quite excessive by this point. So anyway, if we enter our name using, of course, the keyboard provided, and hit save name, we'll open up our new view, and your name is Jude. Excellent. We haven't got any built-in navigation, but I think you can use back or something if you want to go back. Yeah, and try it again. But basically, that's the way we open up multiple views, and you can have views kind of go back and forward and all of that kind of thing, passing information between them. All right, thanks for watching the final video, and I'll see you in class.